Hello, BookTube. All right, we're continuing with my 14K Q&A, where I don't know what video. I think this is video number 4. I'll number them correctly, or I'll try to when I upload them. I just had a guest, David Murphy, former BookTuber David Murphy. I was feeling a little down. When guests leave, I always feel a little down. It's really ridiculous, I know, but I was hoping that talking, doing questions, maybe even a Steve stream would pick up my spirits, and it is happening. So thank you very much. But where did we leave off? We left off with Sam asking about the 2024 U.S. presidential election. Then we move on to let's see here, Sean G. How is your relationship with Bookish and Paperback Junkie since what went down a few months ago? Have any of them reached out to apologize? Well, you don't know that Brian at Bookish owes me an apology. The only thing that you know is what you've seen on YouTube. And on YouTube, you saw that I made a video talking about monetization. He made a very, very good response/rebuttal video. I was laughing my head off while I was watching it. I love a good scrap. Love it. I love if somebody points out hypocrisy, points out that I'm wrong about something, and to do it in such an entertaining way. I think he removed the comments on that video, or you could go to it and you would see a comment from me. So when we're talking about that whole thing that happened last summer, as far as you know, you cannot talk about Brian at Bookish. As far as Paperback Junkie, no. There's been no apology. No one apologizes in the 21st century for anything, ever, under any circumstances, even when, and especially when, they are obviously in the wrong. So no, no, there hasn't been anything. I'm not holding my breath at all. The Spaminator is back. Steve, which Star Wars movie was better, The Empire Strikes Back or Return of the Jedi? Also, hand shot first. The Empire Strikes Back is widely regarded as the best Star Wars movie. I don't think any of them are all that good, but I certainly liked it more than the endless slog of Return of the Jedi. Andrew McDonald says, please supply the pseudonym under which you wrote for the Comics Journal so as not to render my back issue collection a complete waste. Do you have back issues of Comics Journal? Oh my. Do you perhaps have back issues of Amazing Heroes? Point number 1. I am shocked, I tell you, at the mere imputation that I would ever write under a pseudonym. And point number 2, I shouldn't have to give you a pseudonym. Come on. I have probably 1 million words of my own prose in print and readily available with a Google search. I shouldn't have to do it. If you pick up an issue of Amazing Heroes or a couple of issues of Comics Journal, if you pick up an issue of Amazing Heroes and you read it from front to back, just don't look at any of the names, just read it from front to back. It should be true that if I'm in that issue, you would say, oh, hands down, oh, come on. The rest of this was good, but that was Steve. I read all of these pieces, and one of them, I was suddenly hearing your voice in my head. Not that I'm saying that happened, of course. Pseudonyms. I mean, really. Let's see here. Indie ATMN, congrats. Are you a fan of Richard Price? Yes. Tom Wolfe, yes. Any faves from either of them? Tom Wolfe, I think it will be A Man in Full. It's an unsavory book, but I really think it is major. And probably for Price, it would be Freedom Land. I know that you're supposed to say Clockers, but Freedom Land is truly impressive. Did you ever read any John O'Brien, Leaving Las Vegas, like or dislike? I did, and I didn't particularly like it. The Spaminator is back. What's the grossest book you have ever read? That would be Cheryl Mendelson, Home Comforts. One particular chapter. If you read it, you'll know which chapter I mean. This is just about as gross gets. Heather Gregg, why is your second in command called Frida? Oh, Frida is not my second in command. I am her second in command. Is she called for someone else? No, she didn't have a name for a while. When she first came to me, she didn't have a name. I just waited for something to surface and feel right. And why the nickname The Bean? Is it because she was like a Mexican jumping bean when a puppy? She was very antic when she was a puppy, but no, it just happened naturally. One day just happened to expand to Frida Bean. And then that just sort of organically developed into a separate name. None of it planned. There's no schema behind any of it. The Spaminators back. Steve, which of the Hannibal Lecter novels is the best one? And is Hannibal Rising really as bad as everyone thinks it is? Well, I don't know how bad everyone thinks it is. The only thing that matters is what I think about it, right? And I would say that Hannibal, the novel Hannibal, is the best of them, by far. An amazing, amazing novel, except for the ending, as I've gone on at length on this channel. The ending is a profanation. The ending is obscene. Not in the kind that's getting you going. The ending is obscene. It should not have happened. But 99% of the book is brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Hannibal Rising very much reads like it was going to be a screenplay, and a little meat was added here and there. So it's often very Dr. Evil precious in ways that kind of bored me. But there are a couple of scenes in that novel that are really, really good as anything in any of the other novels. There's an indefatigable police inspector who very gradually, very inadvertently in the course of the book, which is not very long, very gradually, he starts to think this kid, this teenager, might be something evil, maybe illegal, something dangerous, something worth my attention as a police officer on 10 levels of magnitude more than the actual criminals I'm talking about. They are doing something. They have a crime that's going on. This might be a monster, a genuine monster. There's one scene in particular where they are talking with each other, and that officer feels suddenly almost a galvanic response. This is something that I should ignore everything else that I'm doing in my job and deal with this thing right here. And then it goes away. Then the novel carries it away. And there's a climax. The climax to the novel has a moment, a dipsy doodle moment. There's a little detail in the scene leading up to the climax that it is mentioned, but you are going to forget about it. You are definitely going to forget about it. Harris moves the cup around so expertly that when that little detail suddenly becomes crucially important in the action of the climax, you will have forgotten about it. You will be sure that you know what's going to happen because you've forgotten that little detail. Just marvelous. I love little technical things like that. When an author can do that really well, I love that. And it is done really, really well in the conclusion of that book. Let's see here. Elizabeth Power, do you have a favorite word in English? How about a favorite word in a language other than English? No, I don't really have favorite words. For the sound, you mean, or something like that? In English, my favorite words strung together in a phrase are all you can eat. But not because of, the sound of the words or anything. Let's see. Derek. Hi, Steve. I wanted to ask about a recent issue in the book world involving J.K. Rowling. I find it disturbing that people are still allowed to read her books after... I find it disturbing that people are still allowed to read her books after what she has said against LGBTQIA+ people. What do you think we as regular people can do to stop this and protect our trans kids from harm? Okay, if this is a trap, it's a pretty obvious one. If this is meant to be a trap, you could have done better than this. I'm not 100% sure that it is a trap, so it does warrant an answer, but every part of this is wrong. Every single part of it, every little bit and piece of it is wrong. Every single individual moving part of it is wrong. J.K. Rowling's stance on this sort of subject is not recent in the book world. It's been going on for 10 years. And also, there's one element in here that isn't just wrong, it's evil. That bit about, I find it disturbing that people are still allowed to read her books. So you want it to be illegal to read her books? Who makes that law? You? What other books are you telling me I'm not allowed to read? And what's the penalty? Do I go to prison? If I find a copy and read it, and you find out that I've read it, then under your law, what happens? Allowed to read a book? You want You find it disturbing that there are books out there that people are allowed to read, so you would be more comfortable if there were laws forbidding the reading of some books. That's evil. That's not just wrong-headed. That's evil. That's full-blown fascism. And also, that's an evil part, but there's still lots and lots of wrong things here. Lots and lots of them. First of all, none of her commentary on the gay world is in her books. So why would you forbid their reading? Why would you make a law that people can't read them when they themselves are not echoing any of the opinions you think she has? They're children's books. So what would be the harm there? Unless it's that you don't want people to be allowed to read them because you don't agree with her on something. Well, okay, so what else? Are there other authors out there who have opinions that you don't like? You don't want to put their books on the index as well, right? And make a law that forbids people to read it. What on earth are you doing watching BookTube if you actually think that? But there are many other things that are wrong here. You say, after what she has said against LGBTQIA plus people, keeping in mind here that Q means questioning. So we're told that your sexual identity is that you don't know what your sexual identity is and you never will. It'll be your whole life that you'll be questioning. Keep in mind here that the I stands for intersex, which is 1/1000th of 1% of humans on Earth and is a serious medical condition, a serious and tragic medical condition. It is not an affirming life identity or a social group. Keep in mind here that A is asexual. I would argue that is either the same kind of thing, 1/1,000,000th of 1%, or I would argue that if you are a human being, it's not possible for you to be asexual. And all you can do is lie about it. And the plus, and then the other plus, go down the list. There are a lot of other things on there too. You say that the things that she has said against LGBTQIA plus people are bad enough to make you advocate banning her books and putting a law that says you're not allowed to read them. But she's never said anything like that about that group. You don't know anything about what you're talking about, which is what leads me to think that this is just a ham-handed trap. You don't know anything about what you're talking about. She has never said anything like that, much less gone on one tirade after another. The fact that she doesn't agree with some contentions that are not borne out by any empirical science, so you can either believe it or not believe it, the fact that she doesn't believe some of those does not mean that she's gone on hate tirades about any of this. She has donated, both publicly and also privately, also anonymously, more money to gay advocacy groups than you've ever made in your life. How does that square with her being such a fire and brimstone enemy of that group of society that you want it to be illegal to read her books? It doesn't square with that, because the one is true and the other isn't. And then if we just keep going with wrong, you say we as regular people can do this, meaning enact a law to make it illegal to read the book you don't like, and protect our trans kids from harm. Again, just more and more wrong. Words don't harm people. I know that if this is real and not a trap, then you are imbibing the far left activist ideology that says that there's a pyramid of violence and the bottom level of that pyramid is words. That is absolutely not true. Words are not harm. Words are not violence. The only reason that is in that pyramid is because the horrible fascistic blue-haired fascists who created that pyramid want a reason to ban speech, which is exactly what you're proposing here. It is evil to do that. It is completely evil to do that. Words do not cause harm. J.K. Rowling, even if she were the bogeyman that you're invoking here in this trap question, and had filled her books with anti-trans sentiments, filled them from start to finish, she still wouldn't be guilty of harming anyone. They're books. They're words on page. They are not harm. They are not violence. And it's also not there in any of the books. And also, to protect our trans kids, so you want to protect them by making it illegal for them to read books that you don't like. You're protecting them, so it's for their own good. Where have we heard that before? And also, I don't have any trans kids, and neither do you. They're incredibly rare. They are not 30% of the population or 50% of the population. They're incredibly rare. So are trans kids, like, you've got a herd of them in your living room right now? No. And also, children aren't trans. Children don't have sexual identities. They have not yet undergone puberty. They are innocent in that regard. If you've ever met a child, you will know that. They are innocent in that regard. So on and on and on. Just an endless list of wrong. And if it's a trap, I'm not really sure why you would go to the bother of putting a trap in a question of a Q&A in a booktube channel. I'm not sure why you would do that. And if it's not a trap, if this is sincere, then I'm telling you that you are allowing ideologues all on all kinds of levels, all kinds of stripes of them, to literally do your thinking for you. All of this is regurgitated nonsense. So you obviously didn't examine any of it. If this isn't a trap, you are letting other people do your thinking for you. And you have about 5 minutes to live. In almost no time, you are going to be old and then dead. Almost no time. This one life. And instead of the thrill of challenging your own presuppositions and actually doing your own research, you're letting other people just fill your head with propaganda. And that's really bad. If that second alternative is true, if this isn't just a trap to prize out one little thing and make it go viral, if this is really something that you believe, you need to stop believing it. You need to abandon letting other people use your brain and instead start using it yourself. That would be great. One way or another, if you want to make it illegal, why are we still allowing people to buy J.K. Rowling novels? I'm not a big fan of J.K. Rowling's novels, but if you want to make it illegal, if you want to say we shouldn't allow people to read this even if they want to, then you and I are enemies. And pretty serious enemies, too. Pretty serious. It doesn't get any more serious than that. I'm just gonna that caught me completely by surprise. Let's move on to other questions that maybe aren't so evil. Just so evil. Why are we still allowing people to read J.K. Rowling? So you want to stop them. So you want to make a law. You do. So says you. You want to say, I'm sorry, you're not allowed to read that book. Okay. Let's just move on. H.S. Christina, what made you an avid reader? Well, this has come up a few times in this Q&A. It was one teacher. I had one great teacher who made me an avid reader. And I can't ever repay him, but I can try my best to pay it forward. The Spaminators back. Steve, of the known Jack the Ripper suspects, who is your preferred suspect? And don't you dare point the finger at me. I wasn't even alive then. Prove it. It seemed pretty likely suspect to me. And could you please recommend what you think is the best book on the subject of Jack the Ripper? A lot of really good ones out there. It's a much studied subject. Philip Sugden wrote a book, something like The Complete History of Jack the Ripper or something like that. It is certainly the book to have if you're only going to read one book. But there's a lot of other great stuff out there. The Spaminator's back. Steve, why the hell are people so unreasonably sensitive? They aren't. They aren't. If I know what you're talking about, I think I know what you're talking about. They aren't extremely sensitive. What they are is addicted to dopamine. They have realized that there is an incredible rush in coercing someone to do what you want that they don't want to do. That gives you a rush. It's purely chemical. There is a dopamine rush that comes from bullying someone successfully. That's why we must all resist it, because it's such a grubby, awful rush to have. It's such a bad way to get that little thrill. And people have learned that because we live in a secular, tolerant society, they have learned that they can coerce people through courtesy or shaming or implied threat of a social media campaign to do what they want. To do what they want. So I am not sensitive at all, and I do not have a just diagnosed last year psychological condition that means that I feel very inhibited when multiple people are talking in the same room as I am. It is a lie. I do not have that condition. That condition does not exist. I am not bothered by multiple people talking in the room. But if I lie about it and say I have that condition, guys, so I'm afraid I'm going to have to ask you to all stop talking. And they see all of those floating elements that I just mentioned. The courtesy of an open secular society. The threat of being called a bigot against the people who have that imaginary psychological condition, and so on and so forth. They see all of that, and if they do it, if you're in that room and they say, oh, okay, I'm an ally of your people, so I don't want to be a bigot of any kind, so I'll stop talking. You don't have that condition. You are lying. But you get the thrill of having made a room full of people do what you tell them. And that is habit forming. Unfortunately, that is very habit forming. So it's not sensitivity. We don't have more sensitive people. We have people who are high on bullying. on successful bullying. The tools for successful bullying have never been greater, aside from state coercion. And I've never seen an example of someone who claimed that they were acting out of sensitivity who wasn't actually acting out of just a love of successfully bullying people. The Spaminators back again. He's earning his name this time around, isn't he? Steve, golf is stupid. Sorry, that was supposed to be a question. Do you agree that golf is stupid? Well, I don't know it well enough to agree. This is by now a very familiar scenario here, but I am not usually welcome on golf courses. The few times that it has been tried, it was a complete failure because golf courses tend to be surrounded by suburban homes. And I wasn't strolling on the grass out there have fun time and laughing before there were a dozen dogs converging on our little group. And when a golf ball was hit, and they all went chasing after it madly because that's just what they love to do. If my companion said, well, they're here because you're here, could you tell them not to do that? And I say, but they're enjoying themselves. And once I'm defending that, I'm told you aren't coming back. So I'm a stranger to golf. Although I love a good driving range. I really enjoy that. That's a lot of fun. Let's see here. Rena is reading. Hi, Steve. 1. Is there any merit to the rumor Herman Melville was in love with Nathaniel Hawthorne? The evidence I've seen so far seems dubious. Depends on what you mean by in love. I think he loved Hawthorne, very much so. And I think there was a deep running element of sexual and romantic confusion in Melville. And the element of this persistent story that is usually overlooked by people is that there was that element in Hawthorne as well, especially when he was a young man. But as to evidence of anything more than just sentiment on the page buried under coded language, no, I agree, that's not there. Number 2, what was the first place you traveled, just you and your dogs? It was the beautiful, lush back countryside of Kentucky, here in the United States, the hollers of Kentucky. That go on forever. They are largely inaccessible. It is a wild, unforbidding, but incredibly beautiful place. No matter where you go, no matter how deep into the hollers, no matter how deep into the wilderness you go, you will find humans, human settlements, people, living as far off the grid as it is possible to do. Fresh water, but no insulation, no septic tanks, no health, no roads, no medicine, no connection with the outside world except maybe phones. Pretty amazing. It's pretty amazing to round a corner in the middle of a tangled forest and find 5 homes sort of sagging against each other. I often think some of those Kentucky winters can get pretty sharp. I often think what those people must be like, what that must be like when they're living through that up there in the middle of nowhere. But also 100 million rattlesnakes for every inch of ground. So you would think that I'm describing something I didn't enjoy, but we really did enjoy it. We spent a lot of time up and down hill and dale, scrubland so tangled and overgrown that you barely see the sun when it's in the sky, and it's really hard to move even in a few paces. And yet I loved it. I thought it was fantastic. And my boys loved it too. And then, we're at the end here. Steve Gilhool has a question. What's your favorite book that you are blurbed on? And which book would you most like to be blurbed on? The favorite one that I'm blurbed on is the paperback of the American paperback of Kate Atkinson's Life After Life. I'm blurbed with my best friend. And it was an amazing thing to see. The two of us there, both names. And it was an amazing thing to see because we had started out on an online literary journal that we made ourselves, and it just worked. We managed to get into the reviewing world, both of us together, and we got assigned the same book by 2 different editors, him for the Wall Street Journal and me for the Washington Post. And there we were on the paperback. That is my favorite one. But as to which book I would most like to be blurbed on, it would be a Penguin classic. I'm blurbed on quite a few Penguin Press trade paperbacks, and I'm blurbed on a few Norton Critical editions, which is always a thrill. But I don't, to my best of my knowledge, I am not blurbed on a Penguin Classic at all. I thought I was going to be for Herodotus, which the Penguin Classic Deluxe edition of Herodotus, which would have been amazing. That would have been amazing. But I don't think it didn't happen, and it hasn't happened yet. I thought it would be. I thought Penguin was going to go down the road of getting a new Decameron. I thought I would be blurbed on that, but that didn't happen. That would be of course, that would be for me, the ultimate thrill is to be blurbed on a Penguin classic. That would be amazing. But I'm blurbed on the Bible. That's good enough for now. The Norton Critical Edition of the King James Bible has a blurb by me. So I'll take that, definitely. And that is it. That is the end of our 14K Q&A. As I posted my David Murphy video yesterday. When I post a video to YouTube Studio, the first thing I see in big type font is my subscription number. Otherwise, I wouldn't notice it. But it's the first thing I see. And it looks like we blew past 14.1. We blew past 14.2. We're now well on our way to 14.3. And there aren't many points left before you get to 15. Anyway, we'll see. I doubt it'll happen. I think YouTube is getting a lot more aggressive about pruning out bots and dead accounts. I really think they are. And the more they continue to do that, the better it will be for YouTube, first of all. I think a lot of channels that have massive subscribers actually don't have many people watching them. Certainly there are a couple of really big booktube channels where their subscriber count absolutely dwarfs mine, but their engagement is worse, much worse. It leads me to think that a lot of the numbers in that subscriber count are fake. Now, I'm not accusing anyone, although I do know that it is possible to buy that kind of thing. I think YouTube is looking to fix that. I think they're trying out different programs to fix that. And that's only to the good. If the hugely bloated, over-subscribed channels were reduced to the level of people who actually do subscribe to their channel, that would be more honest. It might be more awkward for that booktuber, especially if they've started to build their economy on the size of their channel. But I don't think that is going to affect all channels. I've heard from lots and lots of people in all kinds of different subscriber brackets on YouTube and on BookTube saying they just don't get subscribers anymore. Their count barely crawls up. A lot of times they have a feeling they have to court the algorithm in order to get subscribers going up. And that's fine by me. So I don't think we're going to get to 15K, but we got to 14K. And this was wonderful. This was always great. Your questions, aside from one, expressing dismay that you're still allowed to read books that the questioner doesn't like. You're still allowed to. You're allowed to do it. You should be forbidden to do it. It should be illegal to read books that I don't like. Aside from that, this was wonderful. And it's always wonderful anyway. I thank you all very much for indulging me like this. But it's extra wonderful today because I had a guest here for a few days, and it was really, really fun. And then it ended, as all guest visits do, and I'm just softy enough so that it's made me sad. It's made me sad all day that the place seems so quiet, and there will be no festivities tonight. There will be no wine and calzones. There will be no watching video clips and talking about books and movies and everything until the wee small hours. Instead, things are back to normal here, which I'm not objecting to. No, I'm not. I rather like normal, but nevertheless, I was a little bit down in the dumps, and this helped a lot. So thank you very, very much for that. I'm going to now commence with uploading these, and I will get back to normal booktubing tomorrow. So thank you, and I will see you then.